As a retired street mime, I'd like to talk to you today about life in the box and why I decided to leave mine. I've been doing international disaster medicine now for over 30 years, and I've responded to some of the greatest disasters of our times. I was in the Philippines after their super typhoon, Haiti after their devastating earthquake, and I was the director of the Medical Triage Unit at the New Orleans Convention Center after Hurricane Katrina. Disasters change people's perspectives. I've seen people that have lost everything. People that went one day from having status to the next day being living on the street. Disasters change your view of the world. I've seen people at their rawest form, and in that place, it's really easy to see what their motives are, their priorities, and their strategies. And when people go through difficult times like disasters, they get afraid and they pull inwardly. It's as if they go into an invisible box where they can hide and feel safe and secure. And once you know what to look for, you'll see these boxes all over the place. I've seen these boxes survive hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods. They're portable and darn near indestructible. So why do people go into these boxes? Because it's dangerous out there. So they go in where they can be safe, and they're able to protect themselves in there. And there's this disaster economy belief that there's not enough supplies to go around, so you have to go out and hoard the supplies and stack them up inside your box and then shut the door. After all, if I don't look out for number one, who's going to? I better lock the door. Some people, though, when they're in the box, look out through that little peephole in the door. And they see people out there and they whisper to themselves, wow, somebody should do something to help those poor people out there. When will the experts arrive? When will the professionals, the disaster professionals, get here? Well, sometimes they don't come, or at least they don't come in time. So there's this tension that happens of being in the box versus the outside. Is it possible that I've stockpiled enough supplies inside my box to survive, but I might fail to live? We knew that Katrina was going to be bad. The military shipped us 50,000 body bags. I wasn't surprised to see victims, but what got my attention were the people that, despite losing everything, did not become victims. Not everybody stayed in their box. Augie was 42 years old when Katrina hit. At 5'7" and a little on the skinny side, when he smiled, he'd wind up with his whole body. He would just wind up and go, oh. And everybody in a full 360 degrees around him would smile with him. He figured, well, I've been through these hurricanes before. I'm just going to ride this one out. So he went to his home, went upstairs, and hunkered down for the night. It was horrible. It was a nasty hurricane, kept him up all night, terrifying, but he survived. So the next morning, he thought, well, I'll get up, go outside, and check on my neighbors. So he went outside, just happy that he survived, thinking to himself, that was the worst storm of my entire life. Little did he know that it was about to get worse, way worse. That was August 29th, 2005. The hurricane was heading straight for New Orleans, and then at the last minute veered to the east. So New Orleans was spared the brunt of the storm. In fact, the New Orleans newspaper said, New Orleans is spared again. But nobody foresaw what was about to happen next. The storm surge with all the water came rushing in, and the water level went way up. When the water level went way up, it pushed down on the dirt next to the levee wall. And in some places, it extruded out the other side like those Play-Doh machines that we had when we were kids. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, one section of the wall moved forward, and the first breach occurred. At 7:30 in the morning, the second breach occurred, but it was much bigger. It was 1,000 feet wide, 10 football fields of water released into the city. And houses were knocked off of their foundations, cars were tossed down the road, and businesses were destroyed. There was a huge barge, the ING 4727, that came right through the opening, and it squeegeed homes right off the face of the earth. Augie, meanwhile, was back home, and he heard this noise. He looked down the street, and he saw this huge wall of water coming, so he sprinted back to his house, didn't quite make it before he got hit by this wave of water, waist-deep water. He crawled into his house, went up the stairs where he was safe. And he sat up there for a few days, looking out the window. He had lots of supplies. He was ready. But he was looking out, thinking, if I'm going to make a difference, I'm going to have to go outside. So he gathered all of his prized possessions. He put them into some garbage bags, and he double-bagged them, tied them with knots really good. And then he went to his hall closet, and he opened it up, and there was some blankets there. There were 6 of them. And he grabbed the blankets, and he rolled them up really neatly, and he got some string and tied it on there. And he threw the blankets up over his shoulder. He grabbed his 3 bags and went downstairs into the water. He waded through his living room and out the front door, and as he turned to look at his house, he was greeted with this awful stench of decay. Looking back, he thought, I don't know if I'll ever come back again. Seemed like he wandered for a long time before he got to dry land, and he went to this shopping center. There was a grocery store, and the windows were all broken out. There was debris all over everything, and there were shopping carts just tossed to and fro. He went over and he got one of the shopping carts, and he put it back up on its wheels, kind of dusted it off a little bit, threw his garbage bags in there, and he neatly put his towels across the top. Somebody there in the parking lot said, hey, the only evacuation point for the whole city of New Orleans is at the New Orleans Convention Center. So he turned his cart and he headed in that direction. Our team from the Pacific Northwest was on standby. We knew this was going to be a bad one. We were packed and loaded and ready to go. And when the levee broke, shortly after that, we were deployed, which means I hit the eject button on my life, my partners cover for me, I'm all packed and ready to go, and I leave. We were deployed to work in Lafayette, Louisiana, in a shelter. But a few hours after arriving, I got a phone call, and they asked me to split our team in half. So 4 of us got into our SUV, took all the supplies, and headed into New Orleans. After we got past the second police barricade, it was wild. It was as if we went into this post-apocalyptic, bad B-rated movie. All the rules changed. In fact, there were no rules. So if you ever wanted to drive fast on the freeway, you should have been there. It was awesome. We could go 100 miles an hour down the freeway on either side of the freeway. Off the on-ramps, on the off-ramps, there were no rules. But at one point, we got a little lost because there was no electricity. Everything had been knocked down. There were no signs. And I started thinking, I don't know where we are. So we took an exit, and we found another SUV, and I went up to the SUV, and I said, hey, my name's Dan Diamond. I'm from Medical Teams International, and we're trying to get to the New Orleans Convention Center. I think we might be a little lost. And no kidding, the guy in the car says, well, we're from Search and Rescue, and we're lost too. How in the world does that happen? You know you're in trouble when those guys are lost. So we didn't get any help from them. We got back in our SUV, headed into New Orleans, and finally made our way to the convention center. We got there about 1:30 in the morning. We started cleaning off the parking lot because there was stuff everywhere. We got some cots from the Nevada National Guard, and the 82nd Airborne provided security for us. So they set up a secure perimeter. Everybody that came into our area had to be searched before they could come in. People arrived in cars, in trucks, in buses, but I'll never forget Augie showing up with his shopping cart. It was Tuesday morning, and he parked his shopping cart off to the side and jumped in, started helping. So when new people would come, he'd go get water for them and help them get situated. He helped us clean people up and bandage them. Thinking, this guy's different than everybody else. This is amazing. It was a crazy day. They were landing as many as 6 helicopters at a time in front of us. And every time they would take off and land, it would blow our stuff all over the place. And there was these huge, these rotors on these helicopters, this horrendous noise. Stethoscopes were obsolete. What do? It was crazy. And it wasn't this long line of refugees that came in. They didn't come in screaming and crying. They came in empty and full of despair. I'll never, ever forget 10:30 that night. I'm standing there running through all this stuff in my head like, okay, my supply chains and my communication channels and all this stuff, and who do I do these things with? And I got all these people coming in. Are we safe because they're shooting at the rescue people? All these crazy things are happening. I go, okay. And Augie comes up in the midst of all this, and he says, Doctor, I was wondering if I might be able to ask you a question. And I said, yeah, sure, Augie, what do you need? And he said, well, I was wondering if I might be able to have that piece of cardboard over there against the wall. And I looked, and there's a piece of cardboard the size of a mattress box. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't know it was there until he told me it was there, but I'm not too sure I want to give it to him. Because I might need it for something. Sometimes I embarrass myself. Augie, what do you need the cardboard for? Well, doctor, you see, I was covering up all the elderly people. And I had 6 blankets, but there was a 7th man. And I was wondering if I might be able to cover him up with that. Yeah, Augie, you can have the cardboard. Wow. It stopped me in my tracks. It was like everything just went silent. And I'm standing there. Yeah, you can have the cardboard. You can have my money. You can have my clothes. You can even have my children. Here I was standing in the presence of a hero. Amazing. He's at home safe, and he thinks, I got to make a difference. I got to leave my home and go out there, and I care. I got to go try something. I got to help these people. I'm sure that long ago, Augie forgot my name. But I will never forget his. He was my hero. Ever since I met Augie, my box just hasn't been the same. I mean, I duck in there from time to time. But it's just not as comfortable as it used to be. Well, it is invisible. So how do I know when I'm in it? Well, because I feel safe in there and not stretched, and I know where everything is. And I feel isolated and stagnant, and my spotlight is on me. I'm leaning back, not leaning in, and fear is my motivator, not love. Augie didn't just think outside the box, he acted outside the box. He acknowledged that there was a need. He cared enough to leave the security of his home, and he went out to try something. Acknowledge, care, try, act outside the box. I've been doing disasters a long time. He's not the only person that's done that. There was Marian in the Philippines. At 21 years of age, she left her village after the typhoon, crossed the river with her machete, cut her way through the brush to go get help for her entire village. There's Wilson. He was my translator, my driver, my right-hand man, and my advisor in Haiti. He went above and beyond and helped us do marvelous things. And then there's two Vietnamese couple. They're two Vietnamese people after Katrina that had their 17-foot aluminum boat, and they rescued hundreds and hundreds of people, sometimes while they were being shot at. All these people were not content to just play it safe. Their box had become uncomfortable. They choose significance over safety. You don't need to have a hurricane in your life to have a storm. I mean, sometimes it's something as simple as your friends are really struggling. They're going through a tough time. And the tempting thing is to say, I'm just going to go over here and wait in my box and quietly close the door. And then maybe there's something going on at work, and you look out through the peephole and you say, well, that's not really my area of expertise. I don't know that I'm qualified to help. Maybe I'll just stay in here where it's safe. Or maybe it's relationships at home. And you're looking at it and going, well, you know, I'm not too sure I want to be vulnerable. After the typhoon hit the Philippines, the mayor of Tacloban, Mayor Romualdez, gathered his team together, and he said, so, what do you want to do? Do you want to sit this one out? Because your grandchildren are going to ask you, so what did you do? What are you going to do? Thank you.